And now Susan Abulhawa. She was born in Kuwait of refugee Palestinian parents. She's written many factual articles about the Palestinian situation. She's director of Playgrounds for Palestine, which builds playgrounds in Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. This is her first novel, Mornings in Jenin.
All right, well, very briefly, this is the story of 4 generations of one Palestinian family. It moves through 60 years of what has become known as the Middle East conflict. It moves from Palestine to Jordan to Lebanon and then to the United States, and it's principally a story of 3 siblings. Whose family is evicted from their ancestral village called Anhold in Palestine during the creation of Israel. And in the mayhem of their fleeing, the youngest son of that family, Ismail, is kidnapped by an Israeli soldier, and he is raised as David, who becomes an Israeli soldier. And in 1967, David and his older brother Yusuf come face to face. And while most reviewers and readers have found that aspect to be the most intriguing part of the story, it's actually a side story. The main story this book is mostly narrated by Amat, who is a sibling, who's the youngest sister of these 2 brothers, and she was born in a refugee camp in Jenin. And the first passage I want to read from you is actually in her voice. When she was a young child. It's a very short passage, and it happens when she's about 5 years old or so, and it's a time when she just discovers her father, in the mornings she and her father used to read together, and actually it's these mornings that where the title is taken from, Mornings in Jenin. Listen to the words I read. They're magical, he said, and I tried very hard to understand the classical Arabic prose, but to my young mind it seemed another language. Still, the cadence was mesmerizing, and Baba's voice was a lullaby. I dozed in his arms. I told no one of the incident, and I lived through the day in anticipation of night, the darkness just before dawn, hoping to once again have a special place in Baba's morning. I fit perfectly into Baba's lap. His arms circled and held me there, my head resting in the hollow of his shoulder, and he read to me again. I could hear the turbulence inside Baba's chest, the protests of his lungs against each inhalation of honey apple tobacco. Baba, who do you love more, me or Yusuf? Habibti, he began. I couldn't help but smile when he called me that. I love you both the same, he said. How big do you love me? I love you as big as the ocean and all its fishes, as big as the sky and all its birds, as big as the earth and all her trees. What about the universe and all its planets? You forgot that part. I was getting to it. Just be patient, he said, puffing on his pipe. He exhaled, and I love you bigger than the universe and all its planets. Do you love Yusuf that much? Yes, as big as the ocean, but without all the fishes. My heart grew with all the fishes, the idea that Baba loved me just a little bit more. What about the sky and the earth? Do you love him that big, but without all the birds and the trees? Yes, but don't tell anyone. I won't, Baba, I swear. My heart swelled with birds now. What about the universe part? Don't be greedy, he winked at me. I have to get to work, Habibti. Tomorrow. It was difficult to wake up so early, and I would nod back to sleep in Baba's arms. Eventually, I became accustomed to rising before the sun, a habit that has long endured. Every dawn, while Baba read on the terrace of our small adobe home, he and I witnessed the sun pour itself over the land, drenching everything it touched with life. Baba said, "The land and everything on it can be taken away, but no one can take away your knowledge or the degrees you earn." I was 6 then, and high marks in school became the currency I gave for his approval, which I crave now more than ever. I became the best student in all of Jenin and memorized the poems my father so loved. Even when my body grew too big for his lap, the sun always found us cuddled together with a book. My life before the war returns to me in memories bracketed by Baba's arms and scented with the honey apple tobacco of his olive wood pipe. This next passage is also in Amal's voice. And not all the book is narrated by her, by the way. There are 3 different narrative voices. Amal is only one of them, and she's the primary narrative voice. There's also an omniscient voice, and her older brother Yusuf also narrates certain chapters. And this is, Amal at this point has lost everything, all of her relatives, nearly her immediate family anyway, in one way or another, not necessarily to death. And she's being sent to an orphanage to live. And I'm just going to read a really short description of her mother and her aunt. She goes to her uncle's house where everyone is about to decide her fate, and she sees an aunt that she hasn't seen in years. "Take off your shoes, Amal, and come join us," someone said, before realizing that I wore none. I walked slowly toward them on the cobblestone. It was dark, and the light from 2 lanterns was fluttering with moths and mosquitoes. Appearing from the corner of my eye, a silhouette of outstretched arms hurried toward me. "Hello, darling," said Khalto Bahia, Mama's eldest sister. She lived in Tulkarem, where she worked as a maid in nearby settler homes. She had set out for Jenin as soon as she heard the news. Although she lived less than 10 miles away, it took her 3 days to make the trip. Twice, she was turned away at the checkpoint. On the 3rd try, soldiers allowed her through. But Mama had already been buried, and when Khalto Bahia realized that she had not been able to kiss her little sister goodbye, she had hurled curses at the soldiers. I hadn't expected Khalto Bahia to be there, but I was immensely glad to see her. She bore an uncanny resemblance to my mother, but the same beauty bloomed differently in each of them. My mother's fairness was exquisite and untouchable, roaming alone in an abandoned castle. Khalto Bahia's beauty took you in immediately. Hers was easy and disclosed hordes of laughter stolen from wherever it could be found. Gravity, sun, and time had scrawled on their faces the travails of hard work, childbirth, and destitution. But even these lines disagreed on their faces. Khalto Bahia's face incorporated them into her joy and her pain, so that the lines appearing and hiding according to her expressions provided frames and curves to her tenderness. Gentle folds nestled her lips and made her face open when she smiled like an orchid. On Mama, the lines had always seemed incongruous, as if her beauty could accept no change or outside interference. The wrinkles on Mama's face had carved her skin like prison bars, behind which one could discern the perpetual plaint of something grand and sad, still alive and wanting to get out.